Hi, this is Pastor Ken, and I'm trying to use discernment and understand this as this is appearing on the internet, coming out under the topic as the sin of empathy. Now, this is not to show any disrespect to the author of the book, nor to the host of this channel. Both individuals have high credentials. And I have to admit, I'm still struggling trying to understand this, the sin of empathy. So I'm going to do my best to be respectful and also to try to present what I think needs to be said, rather than calling this the sin of empathy. So, you can go on to that channel, and it's the Albert Mohler channel, and Albert Mohler is having conversations with Joe Rigney, who is the author of the book and the one who is promoting this concept online. So, in respect to both, I'd like to say that they have done well to present this in a nice way, but I'm going to get right to one of my main points is 25 minutes into the talk, and there has not been one scripture presented or exposited. So is this concept really valid? Now I'm going to say no, but what I think needs to be said is valid, and perhaps I'm reworking Reverend Joe Rigney's presentation. And if so, that's okay, and he is not here to, quote, defend himself or to explain himself, and so I realize that. But I'm going to go ahead and give my version of things, and this is done in respect and not in hostility in any way to this author. So, listening to their conversations or their podcast or whatever this was called, I took some notes, and he begins by trying to tell us the origin of the word empathy, which is great in my book because I love etymology. And he says that it started somewhere along the lines of, in the field of arts, that you could somehow project yourself into the artwork or the artist's efforts. Then it was picked up by the self-help, self-improvement type stuff in psychology, and psychologists and maybe even psychiatrists wanted to go a little further with some things and say, well, let's move beyond pity and let's have empathy. Now, they also discussed the idea that empathy is like a synonym for sympathy, but that's not really correct. They're two different words. And as far as I always understood them, you couldn't say I'm empathetic unless you yourself actually had that experience. So, if you did not have it, then you can be sympathetic. So, empathy is sharing in common a certain feeling based on certain experiences. Now, we talk about in science fiction, or just in fiction, an empath. Someone who can immediately enter into your feelings even though that individual has never been where you have been or done what you have done. Now, rightfully so, he links this, meaning Mr. Rigney, he links this with the wokeness. And if you are interested, I did a whole series on wokeness. All you have to do is look under my playlist or go to the search box on my channel and type in wokeness. Now, I think he is correct on this. And so I do want to affirm what he's trying to say, but I'd like to say it in a different manner rather than calling it the sin of empathy. What he's trying to say is that those who were in the church wanted to affirm the feelings of these people who are calling themselves transgenders, or even those who are homosexual or lesbian, to affirm their feelings. And so they felt then they had to agree with them. They had to agree with the sins. So no, I think that's kind of valid, definitely. I'm going to get to that in just a minute about what literally is going on here. But I want to reaffirm what I said earlier. Not one scripture, after listening it to 25 minutes, not one scripture was presented to justify this concept of the sin of empathy. Now, they alluded to things. Mostly it's been a philosophical discussion, and you can listen to the discussion for yourself and make your own judgments. But to me, that is a red flag. Where are the scriptures to tell me that I'm sinful because I have empathy? All right? Now, I know he needs to explain it, and I know he wants to refine it, but it seems to me it was just a catchy phrase to sell books and to get on YouTube channels and to get interviews. That's what it seems like to me. But connecting empathy with sin and sinful lifestyles has led to the current state of wokeness. In other words, a lot of wokeness is that they want you to empathize with them and thus agree with them, or vice versa. Agree with them and then empathize with them. So along those lines, I want to go ahead and give you my notes and my understanding of this. But first we've got to go into the Old Testament. And it's just a simple matter of going into Psalm number 1. Psalm number 1. Verse 1. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. Now that's how I would summarize what Mr. Rigney is trying to get across. I'm not sure he would agree, but I'm trying my best to get some good out of this whole discussion that he has, but I don't really like the idea of him calling it the sin of empathy. So I'm going to say empathy is not a sin, but to walk in the counsel of the ungodly is a sin. To stand in the way of sinners is a sin. To sit in the seat of the scornful is a sin. So you have that progression of walking, and I just summarized it there on the right to just saying that means you want to flirt with sin, check it out, be around it, give it a try, take a free sample. Then you stand with sin, you agree with it. I agree with this. Whatever it is. Usage of drugs, excessive alcohol, changing your sex, becoming attracted to the same sex, whatever it is. You agree with it. Now you're ready to sit in the seat of the scornful. You are ready to proclaim it. You're ready to fight for it. And you're ready to condemn others who do not accept it. What is happening is basically the old concept of what they call soul tie. Now you might want to use a different term for it, like soul bond. Bonding. A soul bond. Now the soul is the thoughts, the feelings, and the will. So on the left I have of a righteous person. And then on the right, a sinful and ungodly person. So your feelings go out to their sinful life. And you tie your feelings with their feelings to justify their sin of homosexuality, to justify their whole idea of butchering the human body and becoming a different biological sex, so they think in their mind. So you are bonding with, creating a soul tie with these sinful, ungodly lifestyles. Now that's my version of this idea of the sin of empathy, so I won't call it that, but I just want to call it with the sin of, and using the words in Psalm number 1, walking in the counsel of the ungodly, standing in the way of sinners, and sitting in the seat of the scornful. So that's my take on it, and once again back to Mr. Rigney and Mr. Moeller. No disrespect has been intended, but listen, if it's really something that's truly needs to be proclaimed, why haven't you even brought forth even one scripture and tried to exposit that scripture? Now I've only listened to 25 minutes of a 1-hour talk, so perhaps I'm not being fair to them, but in all honesty, it flops. There's no sin of empathy. Thank you for watching this presentation. This concludes the video.